All right, Panther fans, how are we doing this morning? On one of the last live streams, somebody suggested, hey, I did a season preview where I laid out what I thought all the seedings would be in the playoff teams. I did that before the season. They said, why don't you look back on that now that we're basically halfway through, see what I got right, what I got wrong, and we'll make some adjustments. Definitely will be a couple of adjustments to what I thought was going to happen. A little bit of a head cold, so my voice is a little bit sore throat, ear hurts. So there's not going to be a noon live today, but Kyle and I will be fine for the game tonight. He's thrilled that the game starts at 9, as we all are. So, going to obviously we'll start in the Eastern Conference. So what I had laid out before the season started, seeding wise, was I had the Rangers as the 1 seed. The Rangers as the 1 seed, Florida as the 2, Toronto at 3, the Devils at 4, the Canes at 5, Boston at 6, Tampa at 7, and the Senators at 8. So, one of those things is wrong. One of those things is wrong. Let me know in the comments if you know which one of those predictions I got morbidly wrong. Now, if you go over to the standings, come on, where's my mouse? Don't you hate that when your mouse just disappears while you're on your laptop? You go over to the standings, and everything else could happen, basically, right? Leafs are in first place, 54 points. Panthers, second place, 50. The Bruins are 5 points behind the Panthers. So with 45 points, that situation with Leafs Panthers looks pretty stable. Wouldn't surprise me to see the Leafs win the division. And then you've got the Lightning in fourth place with 42 points, but they've got 5 games in hand on Boston, 3 games in hand on the Panthers. So depending on what Tampa does with those games, that's where they're going to be. And the 8th seed right now, tied with the 8th seed. Well, actually, no. I guess something must have happened here where Pittsburgh got another point. So Pittsburgh's got the 8th seed right now at 41 points. But the 8th seed is anybody's show right now. Almost anybody's show. The 8th seed is Pittsburgh at 41 points. Then you've got the Jackets at 40. You've got the Senators at 40. You've got the Canadiens at 39. You've got the Flyers at 39. The Rangers and Islanders with 37. You even got the Red Wings at 38. The only team, quite literally, if you discount games in hand, the only team that is not within 2 games of the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference are the Sabres. That's it. Everybody else is within a game or two, give or take, when you look at the games in hand. Everybody pretty much has either 39, 40, or 41 games played. Ottawa has 38 games, so you might want to even slot them in. I look at what we're seeing, and I look at what I predicted. And obviously, I think that the Rangers will not get the 1 seed. I feel confident at this point in making that adjustment. But I kind of feel like Ottawa will probably get that 8th seed. I think they're best positioned to do it. I think they've been building towards it long enough, and I'm not really convinced that the Penguins or Jackets or Flyers are going to have the juice to continue on. And then there's the Rangers. Now, the Rangers are 4 points out of the 8th seed. They are, at the end of this season, there's going to be an autopsy of that team, and we're going to find where the cancers were. We've started to see some of the obvious symptoms, but when I started hearing the news stories that the Rangers are panicking, the Ranger fans are panicking, this is horrible. And you look at the standing, it's like, well, they were still in the playoffs by 2 points. And kind of reminded me a little bit of what went on with Gallant when he got fired, when, we had just lost Huberdeau. We were like 2 points out of a playoff spot right there. And then Gallant got fired. What the Rangers, I've said this before plenty of times, I think the Rangers panicked. And they don't seem to have a real direction as to what they're doing. They're just like throwing things. They're just like cleaning up the room. The room is a mess, and they're just throwing stuff away haphazardly without even realizing or, really in depth looking at what they're doing. So, look, they got Shesterkin. They still have some talented guys on that team. I can't count them out completely. I know that the way that things have looked and the way they've played and all of that, But the bottom line is they're still only 4 points out of a playoff spot. In the end, I don't think they'll get there. In the end, I'm going to stick with my Senators prediction as the 8th seed, which would have either Boston, Tampa, or the Senators. I think both wildcards could come out of the Atlantic. Boston is pretty much righted the ship. It's weird, man. I mean, they were playing poorly, then they were playing better. Now they've lost 4 in a row. So have the Lightning. But they've lost, both of those teams have lost 4 in a row, but they've held on to their playoff spots, which gives you an indication of the fact that nobody wants it. The Penguins took over the 8th seed. They've lost 3 in a row. It's backwards. It's all backwards in the Eastern Conference right now. Now, if you went by goal differential, there's some crazy things, right? You've got the Bruins in 3rd place with a negative 20 goal differential and the Lightning in 4th place with a plus 32. So, Penguins are the 8th seed with a minus 27. And for the most part, you look at the rest of it and pretty much teams are slotting in where you would think they would. Montreal's an interesting situation. They've played better, right? Is Montreal going to have the goaltending? They might be a year away. Don't get your hopes up too much, Habs fans. It's not looking too bad, right? But I think when you get some of these teams, as the Panthers and Leafs and Bruins and Lightning and Capitals and Devils and Hurricane, as these teams start gearing up for the playoff runs, depending on who Montreal plays at the end of their season, it could become tougher for them. Right now, as we've seen with the Panthers and some of these other teams, they're just kind of coasting, riding the waves and waiting for the playoffs. So in terms of the prediction that I made, Rangers won't get the 1 seed. That's true. And I do believe Ottawa will be the team that will get the 8th seed. And now let's look at what I said for the Western Conference. Now I'm going to just read out what I said here. I haven't even looked at I'm doing this one blind, right? I haven't even looked at the Western Conference standings in at least a minute. So my prediction was the Oilers at 1, the Preds at 2, the Avs at 3, the Canucks at 4, the Jets at 5, the Knights at 6, the Stars at 7, and the Kings at 8. So I know right off the bat, obviously, I'm not thinking the Oilers are going to be the top seed, right? We'll just start there. They're at 51 points. It's possible. They could go on a run. Now, did I say the Blues? Let's see. The Central Division has Jets, Wild, Stars, Avalanche. And what did I say? Preds have Jets, Stars. So Preds. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about those guys. Where are they? Where are the stinking Preds? Where are you? There you are. You are, 33 points. Oh my gosh. The only thing keeping the Preds out of the basement are the Blackhawks. So in the Pacific, you've got Knights, Kings, Oilers, Canucks. And I had said Oilers, Canucks, Knights, Kings. So it's kind of backwards, but it's the same 4 in the Pacific. They'll go back and forth. You never know how those guys are going to finish. So the team that obviously I missed in the Western Conference was the Preds. And so who is in that I neglected to predict? And that would be the Wild. I believe that's correct, right? Yeah, I had the Wild in 5th place, and it is the Wild now in 2nd place. So now when you look at the point standings, Central has got the Jets at 56, the Wild at 54, the Stars at 49, the Avalanche at 49. So similar to the Atlantic, there's the top 2, and then there's the rest. Over in the Pacific, you got the Knights at 57. They're taking that division unless something happens. And then you've got the Kings, Oilers at 51, and then Canucks at 44. So that means the 8th seed right now, the Avalanche have got 7 at 49. And the 8th seed right now are the Canucks at 44. Now, you've got the Flames at 43. You've got the Blues at 42. You've got Utah at 41. And if you want, I'm not going to consider the Ducks. The Ducks are a little bit far out there, right? They're 6 points out. I think that's far enough at this point to say the Ducks aren't making the playoffs. The Preds are not even close enough. The Preds are not even close enough to make a run. Like, at least the Rangers have kept it. Hey, if they win 5 in a row, they could make a run to the 8th seed. The Preds have just clunk. And again, similar to the Rangers, after the season is over, there's going to be an autopsy of what in the hell happened with Nashville. I know, generally speaking, a lot of people will say, well, that's what happens when you take a bunch of, aging free agents and all of that. But considering how they played last year and the pieces that they added, the precipitous drop-off is beyond shocking, right? It doesn't add up. It really, really doesn't add up, but it's what's happening. So there's that. So in terms of my prediction, could the Wild the Preds, yeah, that's not happening. So I'm going to have gotten 7 of the 8 probably correct. And let's see if there's any team. Was there another team? No, Oilers, Canucks, Knights, Kings. So basically everything, give or take the seeding, looks like that's what's going to happen, except the Preds are not going to be the 2nd seed winning that division. And then the Wild look like they're pretty secure in a playoff spot. The West is not as tight as the East, obviously. I think it looks a little bit more set in stone. Look, the Avalanche are in 4th place. They've got 49 points. They're making the playoffs, right? They're tied with the Stars. Those 2 teams, pending a disaster, they're making the playoffs. So then you got the Blues, you got Utah, you've got the Canucks are at 44, the Flames are at 43. So you've got about 4 teams there fighting for the 8th seed. But I mean, if you're going to have to pick a team between the Canucks, the Flames, the Blues, and Utah, I think the Canucks, I would feel surprised if anything different happened there. I don't really see, the Flames have the talent. They could possibly make something happen. It's all going to depend on if one team goes on a run while at the same time there's a little bit more room in the West if one team collapses, right? Like if the Canucks have a 5 or 7 game losing streak, there's another couple teams that could kind of pop up there. So it was pretty close. It was close except for where it wasn't. But I think the 2 teams that I got kind of wrong are the 2 teams most people would have gotten wrong, and that is in the Rangers and the Preds. And it's going to be real interesting to see what happens after the season, where those 2 teams go, right? I mean, the Rangers, they were just on this upward arc, and they get to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they did something which doesn't happen in the playoffs for the Panthers, which is they beat us. They didn't just beat us in overtime; they beat us 2 times in a row in overtime. Now, I was worried because the way our attitude as Panther fans was, when we get to overtime, that's 2 points. We won. We already won the game. It's just we're waiting to see how it's going to happen, right? After the whole thing went down, especially against the Canes, we won the 4 overtime, and then the next game was the overtime, and then we won the series with like 5 seconds left or whatever it was that Kachuk scored. So we kind of felt as Panther fans, it's overtime. The game is over. And so they beat us 2 times in a row. They had a 2-1 lead in the Eastern Conference Finals. And, we know the rest. I mean, we took them to 6, or they took us to 6. But by all rights and measurements, they should have just been able to build on that. And instead, management panicked when they didn't start the season off the way that, they expected them to, right? I mean, I had the Rangers being the number 1 seed, and I guess management did as well, and they kind of panicked, and now they're just kind of floating there. It's like, well, what are you? What are you? You haven't torn it down for a rebuild. What are you, Rangers? And then in terms of the Preds, I've been saying it for weeks. I don't know how Andrew Brunette still has a job, unless the general consensus is not his fault because they got all these aging veterans and everybody's just collapsing in ability at the same time. It's hard to believe. It's hard to imagine what has gone on with both of those teams. Very different paths, right? But the Preds, again, last year they had success. You thought that they were going to build on that success, and then nothing. Now, In terms of what I had said at the end of the video, let's get to the long and the skinny of it. In the end of the NHL season preview video, I did predict that the Panthers would win Stanley Cup again. However, I said that they would win the Cup against Nashville. So, I'm already wrong. There's that prediction is already done and in the garbage can because that ain't happening. Now, do I think the Cats can repeat? Of course. Do I think they will is a different story. Now, I know everyone's going to say, well, the defense this and the forwards this and the goaltending this and blah, 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 blah. Look. It sucks to say it. It sucks to watch it. It sucks to recognize it on the ice. But it is what it is, okay? This team is going to coast and give the bare minimum physical and mental effort as often as they can to eke out as many points as they need to make the playoffs and get the number 1 or 2 spot in the division, get home ice in the first round of the playoffs. And they are not going to give one iota of mental, physical energy more than that. And that's it. End of discussion, period, exclamation point. Write it down in the book. Okay? We can sit here and bitch, moan, and go and complain all these things, and I'll get into that. But in terms of how they look right now, let it go. Let it go. It ain't changing until probably game 3, round 1. Okay? Probably win game 1, and then we'll probably get asses handed to us game 2 because we think we're hot shit. And then they'll wake up and go, oh, that's right, it's the playoffs. Okay? I'm not going to worry about any of it until I see them get into game 3 and game 4 and giving the type of performance on the ice that we've seen from time to time with this team. I'm not going to do it. Now, do we need defensive help? Yeah. Do we have a monumental juxtaposition of cap issues and impending free agents that we could do all manner of things in terms of move this guy, move that guy, keep those guys, lose them for nothing? Are we dead set on trying to win the cup again? Are we gonna, there's Bennett and Spencer Knight and Ekblad, right? And I know Knight has one more year in his contract, so does Bob. There's considerations there where Bob and Knight's contracts expire at the same time. So Zito is in this position of having to look at where we are now. We got our cup. This is a different thing now, okay? We have the cup. Yeah, we want to win again. But we don't want to attempt to win again at the expense of the next 5 to 7 years of possibly still being in a cup window. Now, I know some people are concerned about Bobrovsky's numbers. I'm not. I'm just not. When Bob is not playing well, he's letting in the bad shots, he's in bad angles, etc. That's really not what is happening. What's happening is we're lackadaisical. We're not doing the forecheck. We're not doing the back check. The defense is slow. So we're giving up prime scoring opportunity after prime scoring opportunity. And he's not putting in playoff Bob effort in the middle of the regular season, with the exception, and I said this when it happened, when we beat Edmonton in the regular season, I think it was 2-1. Go watch the last 5 to 10 minutes of that game. If you have any concerns over whether or not Bobrovsky still has playoff Bob inside of him, go watch the last 10 minutes of the game where we beat Edmonton this year, and you'll see it. It's all still there, okay? All of the ability is still there. This team is fully capable of turning it on in the playoffs and still being the monster that they were, with one exception. And this is where we need to fix the things. We all kind of hoped and prayed that losing Montour and OEL was not going to be as bad as we thought. We hoped if Schmidt can make up for one of them, right? Maybe Boquist can surprise us. There was a couple of other guys that we thought, hey, maybe we can function. And I think that's what we're doing, is functioning. But we're putting too much pressure on Dmitry Kulikov at times to be a little bit better than he is. I love him. Okay, he saved the goal right there in Game 7 last year. No questions asked. But we're putting a little bit too much pressure on him to consistently be, at his age, a little bit better than he really is. Mikla, we're fine. We won with Ekblad last year. We can win with Ekblad again. I know we all make fun of Ekblad and he's got all these deficiencies. We still won the cup with Ekblad. We could do it again. Okay? I got no worries there. That said, Montour and OEL is too much to lose. It's too much to lose to not replace. We need a viable replacement sitting there next to Mikla, okay? That way, Kulikov is the dude on the bottom pair, solidifying everything. And I think no matter who it is, his pairing would be, whether it be Schmidt, Balinskis, I would feel comfortable enough with that, okay? Would I love to get two guys? Would I love to get a pairing for Mikla and another pairing for Kulikov on the bottom and have Balinskis and Schmidt be depth off the bench? I'd love it. I'd feel exceptional about that. But assets are limited. And like I said, we've got a whole Jenga suite of considerations of guys whose contracts are expiring. Do we want to try to get assets? But let me say a couple of things. If I'm not saying we will, I'm not saying we should, and I really hope we don't. But if we trade Sam Bennett in return for assets, that is the white flag on the season and repeating as cup champs. Unless it's some stupid shit like Bennett and Ekblad for McCarr and McKinnon, which ain't happening, by the way. Okay? But unless it's something like that, right? Because Zito has all the pictures. Relatively speaking, without Sam Bennett, this team is probably not winning a playoff round. It's that we've seen enough, haven't we, Panther fans, of when he's been out of the lineup in the playoffs in the last 2 years. We've seen. We all love Anton Lundell. He's not Sam Bennett. The way the team is built, the way the team is structured, right now, you got to have Sam Bennett. So whether or not we're signing him to a new contract or losing him for nothing, that matters not. If we want to have a chance at repeating, Sam Bennett has to stay. For the most part, I would say the same thing about Ekblad. And that is because of the locker room presence, the cohesion. All right, we've lost a lot of juice. OEL, Montour, Longberg, Cousins. All right? You pull Ekblad from that locker room, I'm telling you, forget about what you see on the ice. All right? You're waving the white flag. Again, Bennett and Ekblad for McKinnon and McCarr, I'll make the deal. I'm good. But it ain't happening, so stop talking about it. So kind of the same thing with Ekblad. I know we ride him. I know he's got all the deficiencies. We still won the cup with him last year. So I got no doubt we could do it again. Where we need a spot is Mikla. We need somebody next to Mikla to be the Brandon Montour, to be the OEL. We need one more guy with some speed. That's really the biggest problem a little bit is speed. Okay? If only Schmidt and Kulikov were as fast as their effort would make them be. But they're not. So, and I know we've got Boquist sitting there, and Boquist does have the speed, but I don't think he's got the size and experience to be on the second pair with Mikla. I think if he did it during the regular season, gave him some experience, I think he'd do okay. But when you start talking about playing Tampa, Boston, teams like that, Canes, Capitals, talking about playing teams like that in the playoffs with Boquist there next to Mikla, it's going to be over quick. So, can the Panthers get a guy? We'll see. I know I got my eye on a couple other people. Trey's got his eye on Connor Murphy from Chicago. It could work, right? It shouldn't be too difficult to make that happen if it's possible. And he could possibly be Ekblad insurance should we let Ekblad walk. There's a couple other guys. I'm not going to go crazy there. But in terms of the prediction, I said we were going to win the cup again. And I'm not going to doubt it. That's it. I'm not going to doubt it. Until I see this team lose a playoff series. Until I see them play 5, 6, 7 games in the playoffs at the lower vibrations, so to speak, that we've seen them play in the regular season, I will remain convinced that when the time is right, they will turn on the effort and the mentality and the physicality and be the same team. Now, that doesn't guarantee we're going to win. Okay, eventually, at some point, Panther fans, I know that this is going to come as a shock to some of you newer fans, especially those of you who have been with us the last 2-3 years since we started streaming. But brace yourself. At some point, we will no longer be the Eastern Conference champions. I know that's hard to hear. I know. I get it. Right? It seems like every year we just go to the finals, right? Eventually, we're going to lose a playoff series. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So whether that's this year or next year, at some point, the wear and tear on these guys' body and minds will hit us, which is why I think that they are playing, and they are just playing it as cool as they possibly can. And I know some nights it sucks to watch, and it's frustrating as hell, and we think move this guy and trade this guy and do all of these things. And in some extent, some of that is correct. But bottom line is, come playoff time, I expect somewhere between game 2 getting an ass kicked and beginning of game 3 that the light switch will come on. Maybe it'll come on before that. I don't know. Maybe they'll do what they did last year where they wake up the last week of the season and say, hey, we could win the division, right? So there's that. All right, that's it. Like I said, there's not going to be a noon live today. My voice is already going from this. We'll be live, 8:45. I guess face-off's at 9, so we'll be live about 15 minutes before that. All right, appreciate all the support. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I'll see you later.